And if you recall, before break, we discussed lambda expression. And lambda expression is quite trendy, okay, in right now in professional world, okay, yeah, especially if with some other programming language, we also use quite a lot of lambda expressions. It's very succinct, okay, so you can kind of combine multiple tasks just into a single expression, okay. So let's just do a quick review. If you recall, let's see. I need to get not this one. Yeah, so let's first take a look. This interface that we defined, is it called movable? It has only one single method, abstract method. So this kind of interface, we call it a functional interface, okay? So always keep this in mind, okay? Functional interface. And there's another called SAM, so single abstract method. So it just has one abstract method, okay? So this interface, so no question about it. And then next, let's see, for this class is also quite simple. So we just define a method. And if you take a look at the third parameter for this method is that interface, movable, is it? So it's that functional interface. Okay, then what it does, it's call that method, that abstract method in movable interface. Is it? So this is fine, is it? Okay, and then let's see the driver part, is it? So for the driver parts, so this animal one, the data type, so it's data type is a movable interface. And then you just apply this, basically it's a lambda expression. You assign a lambda expression to a variable. That's not what this means, okay? Basically, this lambda expression, it creates an anonymous classes object. And that anonymous class, if you recall previously, we discussed this anonymous class, it implements that movable interface. And that movable interface, it has a single abstract method, is it? So you need to implement that single abstract method. And the implementation is this part after the arrow part. And this part is that single abstract method's parameter. So it matches. Okay, you don't need to give parameter type. You just directly specify the argument. Is it? So here is the parameter, basically parameter name. Is it? That's what this method going to implement. This method just going to output something. Okay, so basically lambda expression is just it skips the definition of a class which implements an interface and the implementer of the method header part directly go to the method implementation. So it's very succinct, is it? Very concise. The code, okay. So basically over here, this part, it's initiate an instance. Okay, so basically in the memory, we can see it's here. So here is that animal 1, is it? So that's stack memory. And over here, this lambda expression basically in heap memory, it creates some object, and that object is referenced by this animal 1. Okay. Okay, that's what this part does. And the robot 1, same thing. Okay, so here is an object. That object implements that movable interface. Okay, that's why you can assign it. Is it? So this is polymorphism. Is it? Previously we learned OOPs, polymorphism. Okay, so that's allowed. And then what is the next part? So this wandering, so nothing new. So that's a class. So you use a class to create an object. And then what this wandering is it? It has a method called wander. The wander's first two is animal and where. And the third one is that movable type. Is it? So animal 1, robot 1, their type are movable. So that is fine. Is it? That is fine. Okay, and for the last one, over here, we even skip this part. Is it? We directly plug in lambda expression. Is it? That's also fine, because anyway, this is a lambda expression, and this is from what? It's from that movable interface. Move to somewhere method. Is it? That's this part. Okay. So that is fine. Okay, so this is the general idea. We just do a quick review of the lambda expression. Okay, after we understand lambda expression, anonymous inner class, now let's go back. If you remember, if you recall, our first Java FX application. If you recall that, we have some username, the password, and then we click the button, etc. And we can take a look, maybe, the running result. To have some idea. It's a little bit of slow. Okay, and I think I need to reshare. Otherwise, you will not be able to see. So this is our first Java FX application, is it? We do the click the button, is it? And then something pop up, is it? So over here, so you click something and some text pop up. Okay, so that's regarding, then we need to reshare screen back to our code. Okay, so now let's see. So how that part works, is it? So previously, all we discussed about Java FX is we just discussed a GUI layout. Okay, so far all we discussed regarding Java FX is regarding layout. Okay, there is no user interaction yet. But in the real GUI application, a lot of parts how deal with user interactions. So let's see how are we going to handle it. So for the button, is it we click the button, then it has some reaction. So basically, button in Java FX that control, it has a method called setOnAction method. And that method will take some object. So this is some object. And this object basically is created by what? It's created via anonymous inner class. Is it? You already, if you recall, this represents some anonymous inner class. Is it? And that anonymous inner class, basically, what is this event handler? This event handler is an interface. And this interface, it only has this single abstract method handle. So basically, this interface is a functional interface. Okay, and what you're going to do is within the handle, okay, you said, okay, I'm going to output some text, is it sign in? So that action target is some text. Then you're going to assign the words to this text and also specify its color. Is it? That's what this part does. Okay. And with this part, we can also cross out of this. Is it? Because we know setOnAction, it will take that interface. Is it? The parameter type is the event handler, functional interface. So we know that. So basically, then why do we need to repeat this? Is it so we can, because that's a function, it only has that single abstract method, and you do need to implement that method. So that's why the focus, the concentration should be on implementation, not to repeat of those, is it? So that's why we can cross off those out, is it? That's why over here for the setOnAction, we just focus on the implementation. And of course, you still need the parameter and the arrow. Okay, that's it. Of the other part, we can cross it out. Is it? And even for this parameter, you just need to give the name and the type. We even don't need to provide. That's the beauty of the lambda expression, is it? And you can also write this way, okay? But because we already have lambda expression, you can completely just use lambda expression, okay? So that's this example. Now it makes more sense, is it, after we learn lambda expression, the anonymous class. Then let's take a look at the next example. It's the JavaFX application 5.1. Okay. If you recall, that's a multiple scene one. Is there multiple scene? We can take a look at the running result. Let's do a quick review of the running result, and it may make more sense. Okay. I'm going to reshare the screen. And if you recall over here, we have a button, is it? We click the button to go to the second scene. We click the button to go back to the first scene, is it? Okay, so that's, I need to close those. And then we share our code. Okay, and then, so now let's see, how do we achieve that? It's just the button, is it? Button, you call that set on action method. And then over here, it's pretty simple, is it? Because you just want the scene be changed. Is it the scene be changed? So the primary stage, the first stage, we just call it set scene and set to the second scene, is it? So that's from the button from first scene to second scene. Okay, here we use a lambda expression. And then from the second scene, the button is the second button, and we are going to go back to the first scene. Is it? So you just call the set scene again, is it? And you see how neat the code is it? And also, when you read the code, you will put your focus on, oh, that's what it does. So focus on its task instead of what it's wearing, is it? It's what it's doing instead of what it's wearing. So that's the focus part, okay? That's the beauty of lambda expression. Okay, then let's take a look at the next one. The next one, if you recall, is about a multiple window one, is it? For the multiple window one, if you recall, the layout is very simple. It's just a button you click. And if you take a look, that is set on buttons set on action, is it? And over here, we use the anonymous class, is it? You can also scrape all of this out, is it? And then just write E arrow and the tip of this. So if you have single statement for your method body, you don't need the curly bracket. But if you have multiple statements, then you do need the curly brackets, okay, for the lambda expression, okay? So just take a close look of this case. Is it versus the previous one? The previous one, you don't need the curly brackets. Is it? No need. And for the first one, we can also take a look. For the first one, then over here, you need the curly brackets after the arrow, okay? So just be careful about this subtle difference, okay, subtle difference. Okay, and then what next one? Let's take a look. Let's take a look at this example, okay. This example on our course website, it's called the clock pin. Yeah, the clock pin one. Okay. So display resizable clock. That example, okay, display resizable clock. So we can run this example and take a look. Okay, I'm going to share a screen of the running result. And if you take a look, this one is a clock, is it? If I resize, you see the clock also got resized. How can we achieve this? Is it? So let's take a look. And then let's go back to the code. For this clock pin, we define a class called clock pin. It's extend from pin, okay? And its instance variable just hour, minute, and second. And we also can set a time. Set a time. Is that how does that happen? So this is set a time. So set time is just use the Georgian calendar, okay, to specify the hour, minutes, and second of the day. Okay, it's the current. And then it's going to call that paint clock because this is Java FX. So over here it's paint. Basically, it's just draw various shapes. Is it like a circle, line? Is it? And also you have text. Is it? Okay, we can take a look at the paint clock. Is it? So paint clock. First, we want to know the clock radius. And the clock radius is based on the width and the height, okay, of the pin, okay. And then you're going to draw the circle, is it? And it's center of the circle. Then it's also based on the width and height of the window, okay, based on the window size, the pane size, basically. Here, is it? Okay, and then for the circle, then its stroke is black, okay, and the fill color, is it? And the text, okay, the text, and text is just some regular, like for a clock, is it? So you have 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, is it 3, 6, 9, and 12, so that you know currently you are in which range. So that's about that. And then, so that's we draw the circle. Then we also need to know the second hand. The second hand basically is just what? Just a line. Is it? And of course, a line you also needed to know where to start to draw. Is it? And the end of the draw. You're going to draw from the center to the specified time, second, basically here. And also here it's based on the calculation. You also need the clock's length, is it the radius, to calculate where the y is. And this is purely the math, is it? Calculation, sine, cosine, nothing new. And the hand, similar idea, is it? Okay, and then you're going to clear all because it's repaint also, is it? Then you add off the new time, okay. And for the set width, set height, you also each time need to call the paint clock, is it? To repaint each time when you change, okay. And also we have the paint, is there? We also have get hour, set a get minute, set minute, is a set current time, okay. So that's all regarding this clock paint, okay, the layout And then next, let's see how it achieves that resize. Is it? So here we create a clock object. Is it? And then we get our hour, minute. Is it? And a second. Okay. Then over here, we also has a label to display it. Is it? And we put the clock in a border pane. In a border pane. And then this is as usual. You add a scene, you add a window. Is it? And so how the resize work? The resize works here. We have the add listener. The add listener, okay, over here is based on what? Based on the pane's width property and the pane's height property. And when we add the listener, what we are going to do? So the clock size, is it? The clock size is going to change based on what? On your pane's width, is it? So its set width is based on its get width from your pane. Okay, so over here later on we will see the observable object from JavaFX. So this width property and the height property in pane class. Okay, both of them, they basically are called observable. So they have the feature of observable. Okay, and the observable then they can listen to events. Okay, so any events triggering, then it's going to do some task. So what over here is the task is going to do what? It's going to change the clock's width and height. That's why the clock width and height can change. Okay, so be careful here. Okay, that's this example. Then next, let's see. We just have an example specific about the observable property. Okay, and over here we just use, we call it double property. This has nothing to do with JavaFX. Okay, and this is going to be initiated with a simple double property. Okay, simple double property. And this kind of property object, basically it's an observable object. And an observable object always has this method called add listener. And this add listener will take what? It takes some type of object, and that object's type is called invalid listen. Basically, this is what? This is a functional interface. And that interface has a single method. That single method is called invalidated. Okay, that invalidated will take what? Will take some observable object. Okay, take some observable object. So basically over here, what it does is, okay, when something happened on this, when there is anything happened on this object, that object then itself will do some reaction, will take some action. And over here, some action is what? Is to output the value. Okay, so just do the system.out.print line. That's what it does. Okay, and then let's see. Then over here, you call that balance set, balance set. Is it? And you just call set method. But basically this set will trigger this listener. Okay, it will trigger its listener and it will be notified and do something. Okay, so let's take a look at the running result. You will see it's kind of interesting. Did you see it output the two new values? But this output statement is from where? It's from this add listener. Is it? It's not like what we usually do, system.out outside of the statement. Is it? You just have one system, but it output twice. Is it? We can also add more. Basically, you can also do like a balance, then data set, suppose 7.5. Okay, then we can also do balance data set 8.5. Okay, we can also add balance data set, suppose 9.5. Okay, and let's save them and run. Did you see? The output of the values, but the output statement is from where? This is interesting, is it? If from this add listener. So each time the set method get called, then it's going to trigger the listener. Trigger the listener, then the listener will do something. Is it? Let's start to do something. Okay, so this is a concept related with observable. Okay, it's related with some design pattern. Okay, programming design pattern. It's quite useful, helpful. Okay, quite helpful. This is also just like you subscribe to some news. Is it? Subscription. Basically, is it? Then you don't need to do anything. Is it? Then it's automatically notify you whenever there is any news. Then you read it. Is it? Yeah. So that's how all of this work together. Is it very interesting? And also you can see it's quite beautiful. Is it? The programming flow. Okay. And then what next? Then let's see. So we already see of the examples, is it? So we already learned event-driven programming, is it? Once you click the button, then it does something, okay? So that's the concept regarding event-driven programming. We already see, is it? And handling the GUI events is you need to have some control, is it? And some event in our case is click the button, is it? Click the button, then trigger the event, is it? And then there is an event handler to handle it, is it? And we can skip that, okay? And then in Java, for the event class, is it? Previously, what we saw is the action event, is it? And for the button click, is it will trigger this action event. For mouse and some key, is it? It also has input events, and the window also has some window events. But they are all subclass of event class. Okay. Okay, and then over here, it gave us some of the events. Is it user action? So click the button, and who is the source? It's the button, is it? And the event is going to trigger as what? It's an action event. And that action event is going to be registered by who? By the set on action, is it? And for some other field also, like text field, enter, is it? It's also set on action. It's text field, radio button, checkbox, combo, is it? They are all set on action. And for mouse pressed, that's different. Set mouse press, set mouse release, set mouse click, set mouse enter, exit, moved, is it? All different, okay? And for key press, it's also different. Is it set on key press, set on key release, set on key type, is it? And the source object is going to be node or thing. And the event is key event. For mouse, it's mouse event, okay? So that's just different types, okay? And then here it also involves a concept called delegation model, okay, for GUI action events happen, user events happen, is it? So generally speaking is what? The first stats action event listener is what? It's an instance of this event handler, is it? Event handler. So it is a instance of this. Okay, then you register by invoking the set on action. Okay, so this is an instance, is it? So, but basically we already saw, is it? This event handler, is it? This event, basically it's an interface, functional interface. Is it? So that's why we use a lot using lambda expression, is it, to handle it? Because for this specific events listener, we are not going to repeat, reuse, is it? So that's why in this case, you just use it once, is that you're not going to repeat use. So that's why you can just do lambda expression, okay? Okay, those about delegation model we understand, okay. And then, okay, we already learned the inner class, is it? Anonymous inner class, we also learned. And the lambda expression is that to simplify event handling using lambda expression, we also learned. So basically it's that the lambda expression, you can also view it as an anonymous method. Method without a name, is it? Okay, the syntax for lambda expression we also saw, is it? Single abstract, we also saw that. And there are also, in our textbook, there are also examples regarding mouse and the keyboard, and you are welcome to read them if you're interested, okay? Okay, what is the next one? The quite interesting concept is about that observable object, is it? So is that we can add some listener to process value chain, is it, in an observable object? So we already saw two examples, is it? One example is our double property, is it? And for the double property, whenever you call the set value, is it? Then it's going to trigger the listener. Does it trigger the listener? Okay, then it will do something. It will do something. So that's the one we learned. The other is that with property, is it? and height property, is it? It's the same thing. It's a similar, is it? So here it says, then it's because the instance of observable is called as observable object, is it? And that has the add listen. Okay, add listen. So this is kind of you subscribe to a news channel, is it? That news channel has the add listener method, is it? And then whenever there is news update, then it will send it to you, some concept like that. Okay, and this add listener, then it has that invalidation listener object you need to plug in, is it? And then that's because the value is changing the property, is it? Then listener is notified, is it? So when there is a whenever there is a new news, is it? Then the channel will notify you, is it? Because the listener will be notified. Then the listener will do something, is it? Notify you. So the listener class implement that invalidate a listener interface. And that interface has a method called invalidated method. So that invalidated method in our news scenario is it's going to broadcast that news to all of its subscriptors, is it? So that's kind of the whole flow about this observable object, okay? And if you recall previously, we also learned the binding property, is it? That binding property basically is that it is an instance of observable, okay? So now everything kind of makes sense, is it? So we already saw both of these examples. And for the remaining, like the animation part, so we are not going to cover, but if you are interested, you're very welcome to read that. And once we, because we already learned how to do the layout and the listener and event triggering, all of those concepts. So of the other parts, basically, it's also not very hard to understand, okay? And what next? Let's see. Let's find some other class, okay? I would like to go over to the Java original document about like the event handler. Is it? Basically over here you can see event handler, it's an interface, is it? And because it's an interface, so that's why that it can be used as lambda expression, is it? Or just some method reference, okay? So it's a functional interface, is it? Event handler. And it has the only method called handle, and that will take some event, is it? That's why, like our button click, is it button click, you have that set on action. So that is, it means when the button gets clicked, is it? This is going to be fired. The event is going to be fired. That's how you can do this lambda expression, is it? And if it's a single statement, you just write the single statement, or you can do the curly brackets, is it? Okay, so this is regarding event handler. And then what next? Take a look at that observable, is it? Observable basically it's also an interface, okay? And an interface, okay, interface, then let's take a look. it has a method called, previously we saw the add listener. The add listener is parameter types invalidation listener. Okay, invalidation listener. And then for that invalidation listener, let's take a look. Then for the invalidation listener, it's also an interface. And it's what? It's a functional interface. Is it? Because it's a function, so it also can be used for lambda expression. Is it? And it's a functional interface, so it only has this single method invalidated. Is it? And its parameter type is that observable interface that we just saw. Is it? That's why in our code we can do this. Is it? We can do like observable. Is it? The argument, and then you can do the lambda expression. Okay, so that's regarding observables, that invalidation listen. Okay. Oh, we already discussed invalidation listening. Okay, so that's all.